Today we're working on our cool color part of our value scales. But before we get that far, let's talk about what we need to have done with our drawing. I'm going to talk today in the video about the next step for this drawing and the value scales for cool colors. Before we can do any more on this drawing, it's important or essential for you to have all of your warm color shapes finished. Okay, and we'll come back to that drawing in just a minute. On our value scale paper, we're going to do 3 value scales with cool colors and 1 value scale with mixed colors. So we will need our cool colors. You should have 8, and you will need your ruler. Last time, remember, we started with the side of the ruler. We're using the side where there's no metal edge. And I am starting with blue. So that will be our first rectangle. I'm using the width of the ruler and I'm going over each mark 3 times so I have a nice edge. And then I'm going to put the ruler at the top 3 times. I'm going to do the ruler at the bottom 3 times. And if I have a little gap, I will come back and use my ruler to fill in the gap. So there's my rectangle, okay, and mark that blue. Just like we did with our warm colors, we're going to have 100% at the top. Please mark that. We're going to have 50% about in the middle and 10% and 0. All the color value scales I saw last time were pretty nice. Some people had a little bit too much space at the 0, and so we want to leave some uncolored, but we don't want to leave too much. So remember, I'm not starting heavy and dark. I'm layering the colors, and I have a light pressure or a medium pressure to start with, and then as I go towards 0, I'm lightening my pressure on the crayon. So how do I get my 100%? If this is about 20%, then that means I'll have to go over it to get 100% 4 or 5 times. So if I use a little more pressure, down to 50, then I'm going to lighten the pressure and go down to about 10. Then I'm going to start back at 100, a little more light to medium pressure, but another layer, my 3rd pass, if you will. And I want to go all the way to the edge. And I'm going to go down to about 20%. And so I'm gradually building up my values. I'm going to go a little bit past 50. And so that's how I'm building up my value to 50. A little bit more. And a little bit more. So remember, it's not instant. And if I push really hard, I won't be able to blend colors. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to choose my regular green. Not yellow green, not blue green, so be sure that it's the regular green. Again, I'm going to mark my box first, or my vertical lines first, the long sides of the box, 3 times. And again, if I have a gap, I'm not just going to guess. I'll come back and mark that. Let's go ahead and mark our 50, our 100, our 50, our 10, and our 0. And again, I'm starting at the 100% end, medium pressure. To light pressure, barely touching the paper as I get down to 0. And I want it to check and make sure that I'm not leaving gaps at the edge. Then I'm going back to the top with layer number 2. Again, medium pressure at the top. Medium pressure, lighter pressure. Okay, and then I'm coming back to the top, medium pressure. This time I'm going to go down maybe to 12. Ish. Okay. And then coming back to the top, medium pressure. Going all the way to the edge, coming down to maybe 15. And sometimes as I get to this point, it's easier to work backwards. So if that works better for you, then start at 50% and work backwards, or towards the top, back towards 100%. And then if I'm working backwards, then I would start next maybe about 60 or 75% and work back towards 100. Okay, so that's pretty good. Okay, then I'm going to use violet, and I want to make sure that I'm using the violet and not red violet or blue violet. And again, I'm going to start with my verticals. And finish the box at the top. 1, 2, 3. This one I can see I'm going to have a kind of a lot of a gap to fill, but I'm still going over 3 times. And remember that our crayons are wider than our pencils, so we have to leave space for that. Again, 100 at the top, 50 in the middle, 10 and 0. Okay, again, I will start at the top, medium pressure, all the way to the edge. And as I move down towards 0, I'm lightening the pressure. And barely touching the paper. Before I go back to the top, I'm going to make sure that I fill in these edges. Okay, so now I'm going to start back at the top, layer number 2, medium pressure. And then lightening or lessening the pressure as I move down towards 0. And I'm going to go a little bit past 10. And then I'm going to, my 10%'s a little bit too dark, so it's easy to kind of go over. Okay, so now I'm going to start at the top. Medium pressure, come down to about 50. And now I'm going to go back to the 100. Medium pressure, come down to about 75. Come from 100 and go back to about 90. And it looks like I'm picking up a few marks from my board. So we have that value range. My 10%'s a little bit dark. So it's better if we have a more gradual flow. The blue was better. Okay. For our last one, we're going to think of in terms of the rainbow. We're mixing colors, so we're going to do violet, blue, violet, violet, blue, violet, blue, blue, green, and green. So my middle color is blue. So I'm going to outline or create my value bar using the blue. Remember, we're outlining 3 times. We're outlining 3 times. So even though I'm going to start with violet at the top, I don't want to use all those different colors to make my value bar outline. So we'll just use 1. And I'll finish up the edge where I have gaps. Okay, so now I'm going to keep out my blue. I have a blue-violet crayon, so I'll find that. And I'll have my purple violet crayon, and we'll have my blue-green crayon, and I have my blue crayon here. So let's put those in the right order. And I have my green crayon. So those are I'm going to use those 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to start with the violet first. And for each one, I'm going to go a little bit past. So let's go violet, blue, violet, blue, blue, green, and green. So I'm going to blend these together, and you'll notice that the values of the colors change as well. So I'm going to use about 10% or 20% value with the violet, and I'm going to come back down past my blue violet about that far past blue. Okay, and then I'm going to get my blue violet, and I'm going to start here, the blue violet. Same amount of pressure, and come a little bit into the blue space. Then I'm going to pick up my blue, start a little bit above my blue. Same amount of pressure. Come down into the blue-green space. And then I'm going to pick up my blue-green. Start a little bit above the blue-green. Come down almost to the green. And go very lightly, so about half the pressure all the way down to the green. Then I'm going to start with the green. And go the same amount of pressure, and then lighten it as I'm going back to the blue-green. But I'm going to merge the blue-green back up into the green back up into the blue-green area. But I had more pressure, or 2 layers of green down here at the bottom, and then less pressure, about 10% into the blue-green area. Okay, so I'm done with that. Now I'm going to pick up the blue-green. I want to think about blending. So remember, I'm using the light pressure with the blue-green, so I'm trying to get sort of a fade there. And I'm going to have the blue-green come up a little bit further into the blue, but very light pressure as I get up into the blue area. Then between the blue and the blue-green, I'm going to start my next layer of blue. I don't want a stripe if I can help it, so I want it to fade. Coming up through the blue, up into the blue-violet area. It's giving me a nice rich blue-violet. And as I move from blue into blue-violet, I'm going to very lessen the pressure and go Super, super, super light, barely touching the paper all the way to the end of the violet. Okay, now I'm going to use the blue violet crayon. Start a little bit below that. Go up into the violet area with less pressure, a little bit more pressure on the blue violet area. And lastly, I'm going to come back with the purple crayon or violet crayon and come back into that area all the way to the end. So I should have a nice fade going from violet to blue violet to blue green to green. Okay, all right. So that's the end of our value scale. Okay, so we'll set that aside. All right, before we start working on our drawing, remember it's really important that all of your warm shapes are finished. So that's number one. Number two, today we are not doing the background. So it's important for us to mark the background area. In my drawing, this area and this area is the background. So I'm going to mark that very lightly with pencil with a B for background, and this piece is also background. So I'm going to mark that. I am not doing anything with those spaces today. I think the rest of the drawing is my shoe. Now, today in this video, I'm not going to finish the whole drawing. I'm going to choose 3 shapes, and I'm going to use one with my green values. I'm going to do one shape with my blue values, and I'm going to do one shape with my violet values. Okay? Last time I talked about contrast. So before I start, you might want to have your color wheel out. Looking at the colors, purples are darker than, violets are darker than blues, and greens are lighter in value than blues. So if I kind of group those together, I want to look at my drawing and think about where I want the most contrast. We've also talked on our color wheel how we have opposite colors. So violet and yellow are complementary or opposite colors. So if I have more yellow over here, then maybe I want this shape to have more of my violet colors. If I have more orange here in the center, then that's maybe an area where I want to have more of my blue tones. And I'm going to start with this center shape here. And I'm going to start with using blue tones in that area. So I am going to start just like last time and just like we did with our value scale. I'm going to outline the shape before I start. And I want to do this carefully because I don't want to have my lines go on top of my warm colors. It will get very ugly very fast. Remember that the crayon is wider than the pencil. And so if you notice that the marks are not transferring to the paper, you may have to adjust your ruler. And like with our color or value bar, we went over each line 3 times. So that we have a nice edge, and that will sort of help contain our color and help us keep our drawing pretty neat. Okay, all right, so now I've outlined that. So I'm going to either mix colors or change value or both. So before I start, I have to decide if I'm using my value scale. I have to decide which end I want darker or which end I want lighter. I think I want this end darker, so I'm going to turn my drawing. That might be a little tricky there in the point, so let's do it this way. So even if I want an area darker, I'm still starting at about 10 or 20% of my color value. If I press too hard, I won't be able to have the values change and the colors mix well. And when I'm working on the shape, sometimes it's helpful to start at the edge and come to the inside, because I don't want my cool colors, my blue, to spring past onto my warm colors. It will get very ugly very fast if that happens. So I'm working inside the shape, going very light to the end, barely touching the paper. Okay, so now I have my other color. It's a little bit darker, so now I'm going to come in with a little bit more pressure. And this one is a little bit darker blue. In this box of crayons, the lighter blue that I started with was called Cerulean. And the one I'm using now is the regular blue. So I'm starting with more pressure at the top, and as I come down towards the bottom of my page, I'm lessening the pressure, so I'm still using the blue about 10%. And as I get down to about right here, I'm going to go barely on the page. So I'm blending the two different blues together. Okay. Now, that's kind of not that interesting. So maybe I will come back and I could bring in some blue-green or some blue-violet. I don't think blue-green will work very well in this shape. So I will get the violet and start at the top. Light or medium pressure. So I'm just adding some depth to the color range. And I really only want this one end to be the blue-violet and the blues mixed together. So on this color, I'm not going to add it over the whole shape. So as I get to about this point, I'm going to start fading it out. So now I'm barely touching the paper. And I'm going to let it disappear. Okay. Now if I decide this is too light a value, then I'll use my two blues to bring a little bit more blue tone. And I may decide that's pretty light, so I may decide that. So we'll come back to that. All right, so now let's find a shape to do green. I think really in this drawing I want it to be more blue violets and blues. So I'm going to look for a smaller shape for the green. So I think this one will be a good candidate for that. So I'll take the blue-green and outline the shape. How many times? 3 times. 1, 2, there's my third time. Change my ruler. Remember, we're using the ruler side that does not have the metal bar. So there we go. And so now I have to decide, do I want the dark end at the same end? I think I'm going to do it darker at the tip and lighter at this end. So it's going to be kind of opposite this one. So I may have to discover that it works better to turn my paper. But even if I want this tip darker, I'm going to start with light pressure. Remember, our colors won't mix and our values won't be very good if we use dark pressure first. So now I'm going to come back and build layer number 2. Medium pressure still, but I'm going to let this bottom edge stay lighter, so I'm not going to go all the way down. And now I'm going to get one of my other greens here. Remember last time we talked about our sandwich. So I'm using medium, light to medium pressure. And now as I'm coming down towards the base, I'm not going all the way to the end, but I'm barely touching the paper down here, but I still need a little bit of that color. Okay. If I need more green, then I can come in with my yellow green. And bring that in about 20%. And then I'm lightening the pressure as I come down to the end. Okay, so I may need to make that green a little darker. I think I do. So I'll come back and put in a little bit of the dark green. It's fine to wait till your drawing is more finished to decide if some shapes need a little darker value of the color. Okay, I think that will work. All right, so now let's pick a shape to work with our violets and purples. Since I'm kind of working in this neighborhood, I think for us it will be most helpful if we choose a shape where there are worms around it. This shape or this shape? Let's do this shape. Okay. So I can choose violet or red violet or blue violet to outline, and I think the regular violet will be the best one. So again, I'm going to line up my ruler. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And sometimes if I pull the ruler away and I see there's a gap between the edge of the shape, then I can back the ruler up or stand the crayon more vertically so that I don't have a gap. I don't want any of that white paper to show. I want the colors to come right up next to each other. Okay? Otherwise it looks kind of sloppy. Like there's a big gap, so that tells me that I need to move my ruler back a little bit. 1, go all the way down, 2, 3, and the last one, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, I think we need the darker end up here. So let's use this one first. Again, remember, I'm not pressing hard. I'm starting out with about 10% pressure or 20% pressure. So that's medium pressure. I'm not pushing down hard. And I'm going down to the bottom towards the base, and as I go to the base, I'm lightening up. So about halfway, I'm going to be about 50%, and then the rest of the way, I'm going to be very light in my pressure. I can always add more, but it's hard to take away. Okay, let's get a little bit more of this purple, the regular purple, the violet, and go down to about, I'm using light or medium pressure. Let's go down to about 30% of the shape. And then we're going to change violets. And now I have the blue violet. So if we outline with our medium color first or our light color first, just sort of protects the shape. And then we blend the colors into it. We're not trying to get our value or our color as dark as the outline, but it just neatens up the drawing. Now I'm very lightly going down, but not all the way. Okay, and now I'm going to come back with a red violet. Let's make this end a little more red violet. So I'm going to work up, light pressure since this is my light end. Little more pressure towards the middle. I don't want stripes though, so I'm careful not to have stripes. And I want to go all the way to the edge. Let's get a little bit more red violet in there. Okay, now the value doesn't change very much seemingly, so I need to come back with more of my blue violet or my violet. And I have to decide, do I want this edge to be lighter and this edge to be darker, or do I want them the same? I think it's interesting to have it be a little bit different. So we'll have this edge next to the more yellow shape, a little bit darker, with the violet and the blue violet. And let it fade out as it goes to the top of the shape. Okay, now, if I decide that that isn't working, then I can come back and add some more of the violet. But that's enough to get you started so you can see how to use shapes that are more in the blue range, shapes that are more in the green range, and shapes that are more in the violet range. You do not have to use all of them, but it's really important that the values change and or the colors change. So in my original drawing, I had one shape that was darker red to medium red to lighter red, but all the rest are mixed. So it's really important to know that color mixing is part of your grade. So you will need to use a combination of colors. And that is it. Happy drawing. Oh, we need to review. So let's review. First, remember our most important, before you begin with cool colors on your drawing, all of the warm color areas must be finished. That's number one. If you finished or after you finished your warm colors, our next item to work on is our value scales for blue, for green, for violet, and then one that kind of goes in the colors of the rainbow where we're using violet, blue, blue, green, and green. And so we're working on trying to blend all of those colors together. Please outline that one with blue. And then we're starting with violet we go a little bit past into the next color, into the blue-violet area. Then I pick up the blue-violet and come past blue-violet, go a little bit into the blue area. When I start with the blue, it's going to start a little bit higher. So each section of colors is overlapping with the rest. And if you recall, when I got to the bottom, then I started with the green and I kind of worked backwards. So I worked from the bottom up, trying to blend the blue and the blue-green together, the blue-green and the blue together, the blue and the blue-violet together, the blue-violet and the violet together. Okay? So the last one is on color mixing. When we start with our drawing, before we start with color, decide what parts of your drawing are the background, and lightly with pencil mark those with an X or a B, so that we are not working on background in this part at all. Okay, we are just working on the object in the cool spaces. For those spaces, some can be a range of blues, some can be a range of greens, and some can be a range of violets. I could also take the violets that come in my box and mix them with blue, so I'm creating a new combination. I don't just have to rely on the ones that came ready-made. Okay, so that's important also. If I'm using the greens and I want something that's a lighter green, I might get out my yellow and mix yellow with these if I want more yellow-green. But as much as possible, we're going to stick with these to start with and then combine these. So we have our 3 greens, we have 3 purples or violets, and we have 3 blues. Okay? All right. So we're coming up to the end of the quarter, and I want, by Friday of this next week, I'm giving you a progress grade